Hi and welcome to episode 32 of amazing. Welcome to episode 32 of the Tech Review. Every 2 weeks we gather to discuss the hottest topics in science, technology and innovation. And today on camera 4 we have the amazing Chris. On camera 3 we have the amazing Vincent. On camera 2 we have the amazing Henrike. And on camera 1 we have the amazing me, Tarek. Hi. And if you like what you see here on the Tech Review, you can of course visit us on Ideas Engineering IO, freetech.academy, or of course at Update, which I don't have here on this list, but we are also on Update, right? Update.com. Vincent, correct me if I'm wrong. And without further ado, let's go into the news. Yeah, sorry, I didn't have it on the sheet yet.
Let's talk after.
But as you can see, we already have the Update logo here in our dashboard. And before we start, I am amazed that we are international now. And since we distributed our podcast through all major podcast networks on Spotify and on Apple, what is it? iTunes, Apple. What is it?
Apple Podcast.
Apple Podcast, right. I observed the statistics and the majority of our listeners are actually coming from the United States. That's very, very interesting. Then on second place, it's Germany, and third place is Peru. And I love it. So if you are from the United States, Germany, or Peru, shout out to you and leave us a comment. I really, really like it that we are listened to at least worldwide. And we now have, I think, more listeners than viewers. So people like listening to us. I really, really like it. So let's jump into the news. Today, first article comes from me, which is Google. Yeah, and usually I try to be not political in these things, and I try to leave religion and politics out of the news. But this time, I actually brought 2 links which are kind of political touched. And the first one is about Google and Project Nimbus. And this one is not really news. I think the project started in 2021, which is a major contract between Google and the Israeli government. And so far, it's not that bad. It was a big project where I think Israel plans to move a lot of their governmental and educational infrastructure to the Google Cloud. But what is not that nice is the topic of transparency. There are some Google employees who did not fully understand what are the boundaries of these contracts between Google and the Israeli government, because as far as the media is reporting about this, these contracts are not limited. So there are explicit clauses that forbids Google to, for example, limit their services to educational sector or the public sector, but they are forced to also provide these services to the Israeli military, for example. And since there are a lot of Israeli employees and Palestinian employees working for Google, a lot of them spoke out that they are not really feeling comfortable about this lack of transparency, what is actually happening between Google and the Israeli military or government. And so this article is not about politics themselves and the conflicts in the Middle East, but the lack of transparency of Google, and even stories about employees who spoke out about this, who were then moved to Brazil, for example, and they had like a change of their contract, and it was said like, you have to move in the next 3 weeks to our office in Brazil, or otherwise you will lose your job. And so this is very, very sketchy in terms of transparency, especially because Google always claims to be very transparent and claims to, what was their motto? Do no evil, right? And so it's a big question mark if everything that is happening within this project Nimbus is actually transparent and not touched by, let's say, military influences. And if you remember, there was in the past also this project with Google and the, I think, American military, where a lot of Google employees, they simply refused to keep working on these projects because it was for, I think, enhancing targeting systems of the US military. And then Google actually canceled these contracts because the employees did not feel that this is the best way of using their technology. And so with Project Nimbus, this is now a big thing where TechCrunch is reporting about many employees who are now in like internal fights with HR and trying to simply get transparency into these contracts, and are either removed from the company or are in legal battles between Google and themselves. And there was, what was it, like an internal investigation which concluded that there is no wrongdoing between Google and the employees. But this is not a very good investigation, because it was investigated by a lawyer who is on retainer by Google. So he can't be like neutral if he's paid by Google. And so it's still the question of if it's really everything all right. And my personal opinion is I do not want to take sides or point my finger to Google, but if they are as transparent as they claim to be, where is the problem by releasing the contracts and making sure that everything is actually happening as it should, right? So this is my take on this. Do you have any thoughts on this lightweight news that I take as my first article today?
I mean, I just totally agree. If there's nothing to hide, they can be as transparent as they claim they are or they want to be. And simply the fact that they aren't transparent about this makes it a bit, makes you question this whole thing.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, there's always this thing of certain things that you may not want to be public from contracts, but especially if you have a multi-billion-dollar contract with Israel, which is in a constant state of, I don't know, like armed conflict. I think, especially in terms of public relations, it should be very important to make sure that no one gets the wrong impression of what you're doing when you are selling your software and your platforms into this region, right? And all of this is not saying that anyone is actually doing something wrong or mischievous with this technology, but it's only about this lack of transparency that everyone can, or basically everyone is forced to interpret and to guess what is actually happening there behind the scenes. And so I think it's really a problem of Google not showing what they are doing simply to save their faces.
I would maybe guess that Google maybe did something wrong in the first place by stating specific things that they are doing, and now when releasing more of the information but making it more transparent, they would probably have to show that actually it is much more military use than they initially said. So I think, I don't know, from what you just told us, to me it sounds a bit like, well, we lied in the beginning, or maybe we didn't tell the full truth in the beginning, and now we need to stick to that, even though that maybe it would be much easier to just, tell everybody the truth, because especially with Israel, I think that specifically United States companies, or the United States generally, is very accepting of what specifically the Israeli side is saying, communicating about the conflict. So it wouldn't be that tough for Google. I think they made a mistake at the beginning, and now, well, they need to stick to that to keep their to seem legitimate. Legitimate.
I love it. I would like to correct you on your.
Can we use this for any kind of blooper series on our latest part?
In my head, I was trying to correct him, but I did not dare, because I bet I can't pronounce the word either. Legitimacy, I guess, right? Is it legitimacy?
Ah, you're such a show off. It hurt my heart brain.
So my apologies to all of our US listeners. We Germans, we struggle with the word legitimacy. I'm not sure that I can pronounce it correctly. Legitimacy.
Legitimacy. Okay, let's move on.
Yes.
I think it's not going to get better, I think, unfortunately. But I think that's a great, like, if anybody, I don't know what the time is, but if anybody in the podcast wants to jump to 17:54 on my clock, it's a wild ride.
And now, this.
Next article comes from Henrike.
I already forgot the new transition already.
Surprise!
Right, like every week. Today I have like a new theme. Since Artemis didn't launch, I thought, okay, what am I going to paste into our backlog? And today it is art related content. The first one is about an AI generated artwork that won first place in a competition, which was quite controversial among the creative artist scene. Some claim this is death to art. You know, creative jobs aren't safe from machines now, and even high-skilled jobs are in danger then of becoming obsolete, like a discussion that's not new, but now brings the creative scene in focus again. The artist himself who made this, you can't say painting, but this artwork, says that the human element has been completely ignored because he was still part of the creation process. He refers to that he generated images with Midjourney and he used Photoshop and upscaled it with gigapixel and whatever. And then in the end, that was the result. So basically what the people are doing, which is kind of interesting, they're judging artwork by the method of creation. And this is kind of a broad discussion you can start, right? I mean, simply because they do not use technology to create their artwork, but like paint or a pencil or whatever. This is said to be the normal artwork, and this is now not art. I mean, this is like the discussion that's behind it, right? So the artist said in the end that probably they will create like a new category of AI art or something to end this discussion forever, and then it's like you are in this cluster or you're not. But yeah, it's you can read maybe also like a philosophical question, like what defines art and artwork in general. So that's why I brought it here.
Yeah. And I also had this idea of what happens if I train, for example, for writing an AI with everything that I wrote in my life, all blog articles and everything that I wrote, then technically the AI is able to mimic me. And so if I then have it generate things in my name, it is kind of based on my work and trained on my work, and the AI would work in my stead. But I would not be the original author anymore, even though the AI is only knowing things that I wrote in the past. So this would also be this question if this is then work where I would be allowed to put my name beneath it. And I could imagine with art, it could be the same. If I'm an artist and I painted 1,000 pictures, and then I trained an AI on basis of my images, then this AI would only be able to generate art in my style with what I created. So it would work in my stead. But it would be probably a forbidden tool in terms of art competitions because they want you to create original art by your own hands. But yeah, I understand this conflict.
Just really quickly adding to Tarek, did not you bring this bot that mimics you after your death?
Yeah.
Was it you?
Right, yes.
Yeah. So this would be exactly that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, kind of. Right. If it mimics then my speech and everything, yeah. The question is if it's transparent, if this is then my bot or if it is me, because in this case, it was like a bot controlling my avatar. So people talking to the avatar would not be able to distinguish between the real human or the bot mimicking me. Yeah.
Imagine your avatar would then continuously create paintings. So we would have a dead... imagine a dead Michelangelo creating images.
Oh my God.
As a bot.
Now that you're saying it, this actually opens up a way wider discussion, because as you said, yet now imagine we train a bot exclusively on the artwork of Michelangelo. Then it could create new original artwork of Michelangelo in his name because it is trained by exactly his work. That's crazy.
Yeah,
What
but
if
that's
that
not you.
wins an award?
Right? Michelangelo.
There was this one rapper, I think it was,
Tupac.
who died quite young, and he's still publishing songs, and this is because exactly or the company behind that is exactly doing what you're just describing. So this idea is happening already, I think. But in this specific case, this was not the case, right? So here it was not like the AI had been trained only on pieces of art of this one specific artist. So that was generated, the basic piece of art was generated by the AI, which actually had been fueled with input from many other pieces of art. So it was not really the original piece of art of the artist. So he just let create the AI something and then optimized that. So the original piece of art was not really his personal kind of inspiration, so to say.
Good question. Was it?
I'm not sure.
Because then I would say, because you were asking actually for the process of creating art, and I'd say, yeah, this is kind of a philosophical thing, but then he would have taken something from somebody else or from many people, many other artists, which actually had been the basic fuel for this specific AI. And then there would have been something, and this he would have taken and then optimized and formed into the final shape. And yeah, of course, it's partly then his piece of work and his piece of art, but just partly. So the initial piece of art has not been created by the artist as such. I think it's difficult to say that in this case, the artist is the creator of the whole piece, since there's a big part which had been created by the AI, and the AI, as we know, is something, well, it's difficult to describe.
Chris, would you say that an AI is able of or can be inspired of inspiration?
Can be inspired of inspiration? What do you mean? So,
Well, so I agree with you that there is this artist who creates something, but there is the AI that creates a lot of it. And therefore, my question would be: can the AI be inspired? Because in the end, art is not a mathematical equation you solve or a sentence you write, which also I would argue maybe needs inspiration, but artistic thinking in a way needs to be applied to complete a painting, for example. So would you say an AI is capable of that?
Depends actually on the training, I'd say. So what we see with DALL-E, for instance, is really quite amazing. And in the end, this is a piece of art, right? So if I would create something with AI and then would go out into the world and say, look what I have done, and wouldn't tell anybody that has not been created by me, but by an AI, then I might be accepted as some kind of artist. And I think this is why this discussion is really absolutely at the right place, because it relates what we understood as art so far to something which can be created within a really short amount of time by an artificial algorithm, by an artificial intelligence. And it has it the same quality? It at least has a level which will be accepted by most of the people as art. And this is something which makes things indeed difficult, critical, because it takes away of a part of humans or humanity's identity, right? And takes it away to an artificial intelligence. And this is something which really needs some discussion, philosophical discussion, ethical discussions. So I don't know exactly what to think about that. So it's really technically or from technological wise, this is really amazing and very impressive. But ethical wise, I'm in doubt, to be honest.
So maybe to end this, just one quote that I looked up in the article from the artist. He said, I've been exploring a special prompt that I will be publishing at a later date. I have created hundreds of images using it, and after many weeks of fine-tuning and curating my gens, I chose my top 3 and had them printed on canvas after unshackling with gigapixel AI. So that was his process.
Yeah, it's kind of the question of tools, right? So it's the tools that we have now at our hands, and the question is which tools are allowed in the future in these competitions. I mean, for creating art, for the art itself, I guess it does not matter. If it's beautiful art, then it's beautiful art. But if you have rules in these competitions, then you can, of course, try to control which tools are used. It's like if you have like a eating contest and you have like a surgically extended enlarged stomach or something to create a competitive advantage, it might be that the contest provider forbid these tools. Right? It's like doping in sports.
I'm super excited to see what will be the final result, right? If the artistic community is going into the direction of we have AI, we have this amazing use. I mean, just think of something as the iPad with a lot of videos. I don't know if your bubble on TikTok is similar to mine, but I see a lot of people drawing on the iPad, amazing pictures. They could not draw with an oil painting, for example, obviously, because they have much better tools now. And so I'm really excited to see what's going to be mainstream. Is mainstream going to be technology-enhanced art, right? And then there's like this specialist, like with diving, right? You have the free diving people without any kind of equipment. It's a very nerdy niche, and they dive into the ocean without any equipment, but it's like small. But it's going to be the other way around, right? Is it the big artistic community where the high prices are being paid, right? Is it still the one where you only have minimum of technological help? And then there's going to be this mainstream community that nobody really likes, where or non-mainstream, but there's going to be this community of artists, not even called artists, that use technology to enhance what they do.
Actually, no, I did not want to stop, but I just wanted to mention if we want to skip the random generator, maybe now, because my second article perfectly fits into this discussion, and maybe we just needed to have like another input, and then the topic is
Sounds great.
Okay, wait for it.
And now, this.
Oh, wow, it's me again.
What a coincidence.
This generator, Tarek.
Yeah, I mean, now DALL-E, we had it, I think, 2 weeks ago, Tarek, or I think just last time, yeah, that you brought it to our discussion, where you can like create art with just putting 3 words into DALL-E, and then he throws out new images every time. And now they announced that you can also use it, or it has the functionality to outpaint famous pictures. So there it's really like zooming out and imagines how famous paintings, how, you know, they look like in the bigger picture, how the surrounding looks like, whether it's the Mona Lisa in a very apocalyptic setting, or it's the Beatles crossing Abbey Road, but are not the only ones crossing it, having like other people there as well, all kinds of stuff. And I mean, it's also, I mean, this AI obviously was trained with the information, you know, from the artists, from the paintings. It mimics even the shadows and highlights it sees in these pictures. So yeah, it just adds to the discussion, like this ethical discussion. Is this now a new artwork? Is this, or what is this? Yeah, using the tools we have right now.
I mean, I think this discussion is so difficult because I don't know if there is any definition of what art is anyway, right? So in the end, the value of a piece of art is in the eye of the spectator. And we discuss about the question if the process is an important aspect which has to be judged for the value of the piece of art, or if it's just the result which is worthwhile, or what is it? Or is it the inspiration in the beginning of the process which came into the mind of the artist? Or in this case, the artist was not even part of that process. He just pushed the button and then the AI did something and then he just optimized that. Is that art? Well, depends on whom you ask, probably. But, well, the problem that I see indeed is, as I said before, that I have the impression that, how to put it, that a part of humanity's spark in mind, like call it inspiration, is taken away by these AI systems. And what happens now is that this whole branch of artists who had like a difficult business before anyways, right? So when somebody was an artist, it was difficult for him to buy his sandwich, to have something on the table at the end of the day, probably. And I think that this business has become much more difficult by technologies like these. So nowadays, call it art or not, but nowadays you have an inflation of these pieces of art, right? So whenever every person in the world can just like give one or two buzzwords, type it into the computer, and DALL-E creates not just one piece of art, but dozens of them with a similar or with a similar shape or about the buzzword which you entered, then there is no need to buy or to look at or to feel attracted or to be interested, to make it a little bit provocative, in the individual piece of those many little painters and artists out there in the world, because you just have it, but I said by the push of a button, and this is something I'm a little bit in doubt of if that is really the right way to act also in the future, right? So independent of the question that probably you make lots of people unemployed with technologies like these, I think of like photographers and artists and marketing designers, whatever. It's also a question of, as said, the human identification which we have and which we might lose a bit in this whole process of taking over our inspiration to artificial systems, to AIs.
I call it racism. Because we wouldn't have this discussion if this were made by a human artist, right? A human artist remixing stuff from other artists, it's the most normal thing that we know. Usually it's then only a question of royalties. And you remix like a song from Beyonce, and then you pay royalties to Beyonce in part because you remixed her work. Or you are actually a sketch artist, or you create like, satirical versions of art, like here this, what was it, the Quokka mascot, right? A human could do this. It's like you tell an artist to paint the Quokka oats guy as what's it, like a busty barmaid. You can do it. And if this were a human being, then you would say, oh yeah, nice work. But now it's a computer, and people are scared because this new race of robots is starting to create really, really good art, and people are afraid of this. And so I think this whole discussion is basically fear from this new capability of this new race of beings working in part better than we are. And I think we have to embrace this as a new set of tools. And the big question would be about royalties and authorship. I think those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves.
Yeah, I think there are two very important things you just mentioned. So the first thing is, yeah, of course, a painter, an artist could do that. But then he could do that within an amount of time. And then he would really have the creation process, right? He really would need time to create that piece of art in the end. And then he would have maybe copied the one style and the other one, and then he have mixed that up and made something out of his own. So that is also different to what we see here, because here we do not have just one or two artists, but we have hundreds, maybe millions, billions, I don't know, whatever kind of pieces of art which have been influenced this AI and let it mix up to something totally new in a very short amount of time. And this is something which is not human any longer, right? As we said, this is artificial. And therefore, back to my point beforehand, so I'm a little bit in doubt of that. And the second thing is, which you mentioned, yeah, that makes us a little bit afraid of, so to say, being outcasted, so to say. And this is not only true for art, I think. This is a discussion which touches the whole AI discussion. since the better AI gets, the more actually it actually can pushes you out, or can push humans out of their role, out of their positions, and take over their whatever they do. And in the end, this of course raises up the question: is the human being an outgoing model, so to say, which will be replaced by AI systems in the middle run, in the long run? And is that something which we want? Is that inevitable, or should it be maybe controlled and put into the right direction? Are we able to do that anyways? So this art thing is just like the first step, but there will be many, many, many other steps which will probably change or shape the future of humanity as such, I'd say.
I think this discussion is very old, and we have this with all the tools that we created. When we as humanity invented industrial machines like construction machines digging holes, like what's it called? This machine digging holes. People were afraid that the person previously had a shovel and were digging this hole manually, said, now I'm out of work. This machine is taking my work. And now we are using these machines as tools. And I think with all the new AI tools that we are using today, we should take them as tools. And certain tasks that were manual work in the past could now be replaced by tools when we say this tool is doing this work now better, and people are finding other niches that they can then participate in because certain aspects of their work are now obsolete. And I think right now we are just stunned by this new generation of technology and new generation of tools. But I personally would always see them as tools, replacing certain things that were reserved for by people and are now replaced. And the truck drivers, which will be replaced by autonomous vehicles in the future, will have the same discussion. But it will just be another tool taking over a certain task while people are taking over other aspects of human society. And even though I'm not saying it's not tragic that people will lose their jobs, but it is kind of the evolution of our society and the tools that we are building and developing, and this is now another tool. Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily say that all aspects of creativity, for example, will be replaced by tools. This still needs to be proven. Right now, it is this task of remixing, taking existing work, remixing it to another work. And the big question mark that we have is how much originality or creativity is in there, or is it really just a mix-up of whatever the machine was learning? Because what we people do is kind of the same. I am studying art and I am learning how this art works, and in my head I remix it to something new, original, which I then call my original. But I studied artwork of other artists for the past 20 years. So the question is what I am creating actually original, or is this all based on what I learned and studied for the past 20 years? It's not that I never saw a picture of another person, and so it kind of all mixes in my head. As you said, it's very philosophical, right?
Plus adding to that, we have different technologies for the tools that we use, right? So we have better paint, we have better brushes, we're not painting like Michelangelo did. We don't, because we have better produced colors that don't change and can resist water and light and a lot of these kind of things. So the question is, and so isn't technology just an evolution of that, which is adapted in a very analog way to how our society develops? I don't want to open this topic, but it's the same with the NFT market, or generally ownership digitally. So to me at least, I don't want to go into this, but tools are manufactured also in a different way than we did earlier. So could Michelangelo come out of his grave and say, well, Tarek, I like you, but your paintings are not really original, right? Bosch helped you with it.
Yeah, but nonetheless, I think there are still some differences, right? So coming back to Tarek regarding the drill, which you mentioned just as a tool, that's true. And it might have replaced the shovel or something and the people behind that, okay. But the difference between the drill and an AI is, of course, the spectrum of functionalities, right? The massive amount, the number of functionalities the AI comes with, right? So it can replace literally every kind of job if you train it the right way, and it can be complex job. And I think this is the main difference, the complexity which an AI can handle nowadays. And also when you say, okay, so you like study 20 years for something to create something on your own, I think there's also a difference in regards to the AI, and this is, so to say, the divine spark, right? So that which we call inspiration, that you actually have the groundwork, the basis of your studies, and you know all the other artists and everything. But then there's something which comes from elsewhere, which is the salt in the soup, so to say, and which then helps you creating something new. This is what inspiration actually is meant to be, right? So that you have one thing which is already there in the world, you have another thing, you put them together, and then you not just mix them and something old new comes out, just a mixture of what you had before, but then there's something which you have here on the left, which you have here on the right, and then the inspirational aspect makes that, or makes you combine that in a way that something really new, a third element, is being created. And this is, for me, what art is about, and what human inspiration actually is about. And I'm not quite sure if this is what we see here. So as said, I'm a little bit skeptical in that. And the third thing, then I'm finished, is that indeed you're true. The discussion is really very old about the AI and what might happen. Let's come back to the discussion with the killer robots. Sooner or later, we always end up with that. But yeah. He's laughing there. Okay, no, but I remember when this discussion actually came up, and many people on podium, forum discussions, whatever, said, yeah, and when we have the AI, they will take over all the work we do not want to do any longer. And then we have, like in our societies, we can grow up and we can all be artists and we can paint pictures and everything. And if I look into society, I don't see that, to be honest, also not in the near or in the far future. And even painting pictures is difficult nowadays if we see DALL-E.
I think.
So what do you do with all your time then?
I think we need like a special art AI episode. I mean, this is one.
It's
Absolutely.
artsy special we should do.
There are so many thoughts also in my head, but I did not want to, like, completely take over
Right.
this episode.
That's why you brought two articles.
Exactly. But maybe we stop here, because I think this could go on forever, and at least have a few of the other articles until we have to finish.
But a very interesting
And now,
discussion.
this.
How about Vincent?
Yes, that's the better article I brought. Looking at time, I'm not sure we're going to get to the second one, so I'm happy that you opened this one. Twitter is bringing editing tweets to its platform. It's testing it live right now. It will first come to Twitter Blue subscribers, and then later to all users free of charge. And this is something, it's been going on forever. I think in 2016, there was the very first vision of how to edit tweets. The idea was you can edit it, but only specifically only until a certain point in time after tweeting. And but then the idea tanked. I don't know why, honestly. There were many discussions over the years, and actually Dorsey, the founder and last CEO, or I don't know even if he was last, but I think so. Anyways, but the Twitter guy, he actually then at some point said it's never going to happen. You will not be able to edit your tweets. But now it's coming to Twitter Blue, and then later to all users. And the idea of it is they could edit a tweet. Obviously, it will be shown in your feed that the tweet is edited. You can only edit until 30 minutes after tweeting. And now that's actually something I really like. I think it makes sense. I've never thought of this before, but I think it's just extremely original and natural. You will be able to see the post history as a user. So if, say, somebody tweets something extremely, bad, and the internet freaks out about it, and then second 59 of the 29th minute, that person changes it to something totally different, for example, just to generate traffic. I mean, this is something we can, which is, I think, will be happening in the future. We will be able to see what that person did say before. And I think that is actually something that we really need, because this is my take on this, why I brought this article. To me, Twitter actually is something that I don't think we really need anymore in this very digital and modern society with a lot of platforms, right? But the Twitter is still there because it was like saying something out loud. You said it, it was out there. You can't change it besides deleting it. And I think that is one of the biggest reasons why Twitter is still as big as it is. And now this feature changed this to a certain extent. And I think right now, to me, this looks very interesting. But if they do it wrong, well, they definitely mess up the characteristics of Twitter. Just a side note, due to this, Twitter Blue will potentially make a lot more revenue. They already announced that Twitter Blue will be higher in prices. This feature will be available to Twitter Blue users first. So two very interesting aspects. This will help Twitter gain more revenue this quarter than expected, which then again will help Twitter in the case against Elon Musk. So very interesting. And I'm going to end with this final question. Is this a coincidence or is this strategy? Because, I mean, this feature, this one sat in the drawer, like in forever, I would argue.
I have no idea if it's coincidence or accident, but I really think this is a very, very valuable feature because in the past you were able to delete the tweet, so it's not like on the blockchain and it's there forever. So it's not, you can kind of modify it by deleting it. Now you can modify it and still not modify it because the history will be there. People can still see what you posted before that. So I think it just adds new functionality without removing any previous capability. So I like it. And I think it will enrich Twitter in terms of that people will be able to see more because authors are not forced to delete all tweets anymore. And I think this was one of the biggest
obstacles.
Like obstacle, making it bad to use because you had a reference to a tweet and it does not exist anymore because it was controversial. And now people can make like additions to the statement or changes to the statement. And so you can still see the original and the revised version. And I think this will cause fewer deletions and make it like a richer platform. Yeah, but let's see how people are going to use it.
What exactly is Twitter Blue?
Twitter Premium.
But what
and I can't tell you what it does besides the logo. Let's not get into Snapchat Plus because this is very similar. But this feature was a rumored feature to be available to Twitter Blue only, which is why it had like a very small hype. And now it de facto is. So it is a monthly subscription, so we'll see until what time they will keep it exclusive to Twitter Blue users before rolling it out. But in that period, it is very likely that Twitter Blue will A, be higher in price, and B, will have a lot of gain in subscribers. Right now, by the way, it's $4.99. You can download the link in the description or on my channel, so go check it out.
Now with this new feature of editing your tweets.
Yeah. But do we know any other feature you have when you have Twitter Blue?
I'm sure there is. I'm sorry, I didn't.
But we do not know. No, it's okay. It's okay.
I'm sure someone knows.
Put it into the show notes. Yeah.
Yes.
And now, this.
HSV. You're a HSV fan.
Yeah, I still did not change the coloring. Chris.
Yeah, I brought this one. I know it's really old. It's like 3 years old. So it's really from Stone Age. But I didn't hear about that before, to be honest. And I thought it's absolutely amazing. And as far as I remember, over the last 3 years, we did not have that in the tech review. So I thought maybe it's okay if I bring it here just so that we and our 2,000 spectators will also get that information. This is about Hyperstealth technology. So this company, Hyperstealth, actually has developed a special foil that makes things invisible, right? And so I thought, well, what does it mean? And when you read the article, you see that that is about a foil that can effectively hide objects. And the thing is that the foil actually is bending light around an object. And by that, it's making like the object itself almost invisible. And this magic effect, so to say, is based on the structure of the foil, apparently. And as far as I got it, this consists of many outwardly curved lenses. And if you stuck like several layers of these, of this foil then on top of each other, then this effect occurs. Don't ask me about the quantum physical effects which happen there, but it seems to be working. So what happens is when light actually hits the foil, it is refracted at certain angles, and instead of hitting the object, which is directly behind the film, behind the foil, it is bended around the object and hits, so to say, the background behind the object. And so what you see then is only the background, and the object is being hidden. So it has become invisible. And I thought this is really amazing what is possible nowadays with this technology. I've also sent a second link, which is just a video where you have also some other impressions of what you can do with this foil and with this technology. And of course, it has a military application. As you can imagine, they put it onto tanks so that at least they cannot be seen. And I think there's also some foil which takes away other parts of the spectrum so that you really get invisible. So this is 9 minutes long, so you don't have to show the whole thing, but this is what I mean, right? For instance. And also here you see like things, nothing behind that, or at least blurry, but then if it gets closer, you see that indeed there is something behind that. And that could be a soldier or something, right? So there has to be a little difference, a distance between the foil and the object. But it seems to be working. And as I said, it's not a new link. It's 3 years old. I've never heard about that. Okay, I'm not into military development so far, but nonetheless, when I got that by accident, I thought I'd like to bring it over here. So, of course, I think it's really amazing what's going on there.
I'm pretty sure I saw this in one of the Mission Impossible movies, right? Where they had something like the screen and they became invisible and they sneaked up on, I'm not sure, like a soldier or something.
You saw it at Harry Potter.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Harry Potter also has this, but I'm sure that in one of the Mission Impossible movies, they had literally a screen that they were carrying in front of them, which was refracting the lights, so they became invisible.
Was it this or was it Inception?
Inception.
It was a scene in a hotel, security guys in front of a door, and it was Mission Impossible. It was the last one. Not counting the one where the trailer is out. But yes, I remember this very specifically. Wow.
Think about Predator. Was it called Predator?
Yeah, sure.
So this alien guy who actually landed in the jungle and then was like hunting there.
Yeah.
And he was also like invisible.
Yeah.
And like imagine you have a suit like that and can walk around, nobody will see you. Okay, it wouldn't work like that, I know. Yeah. But if they develop that a little bit further, maybe one day something like that could be possible.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think in Mission Impossible, they had something like a camera behind that, which was then showing like the image from behind these people on the screen in front of this. So it's it's not really the same thing what we are seeing here. This one is just like this physical effect of refracting light and making it not really invisible.
Well, wait for it. I would say wait for it. I mean, imagine the AI learning but you know those weird apps where you can remove objects, but just drag in their fingers, your finger above the object, and the AI understands, oh yes, this is a tree, so no hole here that becomes blue.
Exactly.
And I mean, this could technologically be advanced into this, for sure.
But this thing that we are seeing here on the screen right now, it's like fault proof, because this is really like refracting light. There's no computer which could lag or make mistakes. And what we are seeing here is that these objects, they are not really becoming invisible, but they become so fuzzy that the human eye is barely able to see that there's something, right? So it's not 100% removing it from your sight. It's just making it so blurry that you virtually can't see it anymore.
Absolutely. And this brings us to another aspect, again, to the philosophical aspect of the whole thing, which I like a lot. That is the last sentence of the article where they say, will the world become more beautiful if we can make transmission towers, ugly buildings, poor neighborhoods invisible? Or is it just another step towards a filtered reality? And this actually brings us back to the discussion we had before. Filtered realities, right? We have augmented reality, we have virtual reality, we have DALL-E, we have artificial intelligences, we have fake news, everybody has their bubble, as you said it before, Vincent. So indeed, we have a filtered reality in every aspect of our life, and mainly in the technical aspects, but also here in the pure physical aspects. So it is possible that that one day something like that might not be used for military reasons, but maybe just for design reasons within cities to hide maybe also just the ugly parts of the city. And then again, we are into this ethical discussion and have to ask ourselves, do we lose, and I'm coming back to that, do we lose another aspect of our human identity with technologies like these?
Everything ends into Blade Runner. Everything goes in the end. This is just Blade Runner.
Funny that you mentioned that. I'm not quite sure if it's Blade Runner or if it's, I don't know, End of All Days or something, but or Terminator. But indeed, that is also a philosophical question, which we maybe might discuss next time then. That
Please.
If with all this technology, the more technology comes up there, do we lose in the same amount, and that technology comes up, do we lose our human identity? Question mark.
Sounds like Blade Runner.
And now,
Yeah, but
this.
Blade Runner is raining all the time, so...
Sounds realistic. Okay, let me throw in one more aspect of this article that I had before in terms of ethical AI. It doesn't take much time. I don't think we have to discuss this. I read this article in The Guardian regarding the Iranian authorities who are planning to use facial recognition software to enforce their hijab law. So they have laws forcing women to wear this particular outfit. And if you wear it the wrong way or you don't wear it, you can be punished for it. And now they are introducing machine learning, or let's say facial recognition software, so that they can scan camera feeds and social media posts and then persecute people who are then identified by this, because they also have like this biometric database, which makes it possible to identify every citizen of Iran to do so. And I brought this article because it fit perfectly to this other article with are we using our technologies in an ethical way? And this is another question where technically nobody is doing something wrong, because if the law of the country says it's forbidden to not wear your hijab, then it's just law enforcement, right? But someone is building the software, and if I were the author of the software or this machine learning system or this facial recognition software, I wouldn't be happy for this use case where people will then be punished because they wear like a wrong hairdress. Yeah. So just throwing this into the discussion, or for everyone who is listening to us, the question where, if we are happy with the way that we are using our technology on an ethical level, and if the degree of ethical AI that we are applying today in our society is right and sufficient. Yeah, just the question out there. Write me in the comments if you have thoughts about that. Okay.
And now, this.
Just because we are a little bit out of time, let's see the last one from Vincent.
I can do that very quick. It is just the lookout for tomorrow. We have the Apple September event coming up. Arguably the biggest Apple event when we look at the user base, because the September event is always the iPhone event. There's WWDC in summer, talking about the Macs, and then there are different things. So let me just summarize really quick what we're expecting. We're seeing the iPhone 14 coming up tomorrow. We're also expecting the Apple Watch having an update. This will also diversify a bit. We're looking into potentially a new Apple Watch Pro, maybe with a new button for an easier use while doing whatever kind of fitness program you do. Also, the Apple Watch SE will be getting an update. We'll be definitely seeing AirPods Pro, the new version with the new chip, the new Bluetooth enhancing capabilities, or maybe not Bluetooth at all. But I'm not going to get into this right now. Well, what is the event's name? It's far out. So from the weirdest speculations to the non-weird speculations at all, the biggest speculation is that iPhone 14 will be getting a new mode where you can actually call via satellite, which is called Far Out. And also the picture would match this because there's a picture of the Earth from space. So this is the weirdest speculation. Non-weird speculation at all is iPhone 14 will be getting a new design, which is an extremely interesting update compared to the last X versions all having the same. And yeah, that's basically like the biggest controversy. Everything else is pretty much up to standard. That the Apple Watch will be getting a facial update, like a design update. This is very unlikely, but it's also spoken about. And also, it seems like nobody's really clear on how AirPods Pro will look like. Will they be looking like the Beats Buds or not? Also a question. We'll know by tomorrow at 7. And I'll definitely make sure to bring it to the next tech review.
I always love with these Apple events that you have this degree of there's new high tech and new features, and there are new colors, and the button now has a new shape or something, and people are going crazy for the new space gray, which is now a hint of purple or something like that. And so it's crazy, and it's no, don't do this. I don't like this color, and I wanted it to be purple, but it's not purple enough. It's like a purple gray shade.
Well, they created a hype. It's definitely a hype, and I mean, look at me looking forward to this event. This is like the highlight of my week, right? Yeah. So no,
it's not tech review.
Right. No, it's the second highlight. No, it's the highlight of the Wednesday then. Yeah. No, but Tarek, you're absolutely right. They created this very hype, and I mean, Apple specifically has this habit of introducing new technology, which is actually super not new, but they call it. I mean, look at audio. They created spatial audio where you can, move your iPhone around and it will give you different sounds. This is not new. 3D audio has been around forever, but Apple made it a feature of the AirPods Pro and AirPods 3 and AirPods Max. And this is what they do. So I'm sure tomorrow we'll be seeing an always-on display on iPhone 14. Like, I'm so sure that this will happen with the OLED display. And we all know this is not new. Everybody has this, right? I mean, look at OnePlus. It's for example, cheap manufacturer, right, from the Huawei conglomerate in the end, and they have it. But Apple will act like they just reinvented the wheel.
Now it's from Apple.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I mean, there's so much more that's rumored, but these are the features that we'll see. I mean, there's more like Apple mixed reality headset or the Apple Pro, the Mac Pro, and more, whatever.
Looking forward to it. Okay, thank you so much for all your contributions. As always, I love it. And the tech review is always the highlight of my week, and I hope yours as well. So see you in 2 weeks in episode 33 of the tech review, when we try to pronounce things like, what was it? I already forgot.
Legitimacy or
right.
Or whatever
when we try to pronounce legitimacy.